In the vastness of space, far beyond the reach of Earth's most powerful telescopes, a war raged. The Veilans, an alien species with shimmering skin and elongated limbs, were fighting for their survival. Their enemies, the Sentinels, were not living beings but machines, cold, calculating, and relentless. These mechanical warriors had been created long ago by another civilization, designed to protect but eventually twisted into conquerors. Now they sought to wipe out all organic life, leaving nothing behind but sterile metal and ash. The Veilans had tried everything to stop them. They used their advanced technology, which blended living organisms with machines, creating weapons and defenses that seemed like magic to human eyes. But the Sentinels were too strong, too precise. Every battle brought more losses. Every victory came at a cost the Veilans could no longer afford. Desperation clawed at their hearts as they realized they might not survive this war. And so, in their darkest hour, the Veilans made a decision. They sent a message across the stars, a plea for help to any who might hear it. It was not a call for weapons or soldiers, though those would have been welcome. Instead, they asked for something far more valuable: human ingenuity. The Veilans had heard stories of humanity, a species known for its creativity, adaptability, and determination. If anyone could find a way to turn the tide of this war, it was them. Back on Earth, the message arrived like a bolt from the blue. Scientists scrambled to decode it, politicians debated what to do, and ordinary people wondered if it was real or just some elaborate hoax. But soon enough, the truth became undeniable. An alien race needed humanity's help, and the United Nations wasted no time assembling a team to answer the call. Ethan Carter was one of the first people chosen. He wasn't a soldier or a diplomat. He was an engineer, someone who spent his days solving problems that seemed impossible to others. His workshop was cluttered with half-finished projects, tools scattered everywhere, and sketches of ideas scrawled on scraps of paper. To Ethan, there was nothing more satisfying than taking something broken and making it work again. When he heard about the mission, he didn't hesitate. This was exactly the kind of challenge he lived for. Rachel Monroe was another key member of the team. Unlike Ethan, she wasn't content tinkering away in a lab. Rachel was a pilot, fearless and skilled, with a reputation for staying calm under pressure. She had flown experimental aircraft over deserts and oceans, pushing both herself and her machines to their limits. Her name often came up when risky missions required someone who wouldn't buckle under stress. For Rachel, the chance to go into space and maybe even fight alongside aliens was an opportunity she couldn't pass up. The rest of the team included scientists, doctors, linguists, and engineers, each selected for their unique skills. They were told little about where they were going or what they would face, only that failure was not an option. The starship Aurora awaited them, a sleek vessel equipped with cutting-edge technology designed specifically for deep space exploration. As the launch date approached, excitement mixed with nerves among the crew. None of them knew what lay ahead, but they all understood the stakes. On the day of departure, crowds gathered to watch the Aurora lift off. Reporters shouted questions. Families waved goodbye, and children stared wide-eyed at the towering rocket. Inside the ship, Ethan sat quietly, staring out the window at the receding Earth. He thought about how strange it was to leave behind everything familiar, the bustling cities, the quiet forests, the endless sky, for a place where none of those things existed. Beside him, Rachel adjusted her seat, her fingers tapping nervously on her knee. She glanced at Ethan and smiled faintly. "You nervous?" she asked. "Not really," Ethan replied, though his voice betrayed a hint of uncertainty. "Just thinking." "About what?" "How much this is going to change us," he said after a pause. "I mean, we're heading out there knowing almost nothing. Whatever happens, we won't be the same when we get back." Rachel nodded slowly. "Maybe that's a good thing. Sometimes you need to step outside your comfort zone to grow." Before Ethan could respond, the intercom crackled to life. "Prepare for warp transition in 10 seconds, a calm voice announced. Everyone braced themselves as the ship shuddered slightly, then surged forward. Stars streaked past the windows, blurring into lines of light as the aurora entered hyperspace. Within moments, Earth was gone, replaced by the infinite expanse of the cosmos. Days passed aboard the ship, filled with briefings, simulations, and preparations. The crew worked tirelessly, learning as much as they could about the Veilons and the Sentinels. Holographic projections showed images of the alien homeworld, a planet covered in lush forests and glowing bioluminescent cities. It looked like something out of a dream, beautiful and alien all at once. Ethan found himself staring at the images, for hours trying to imagine what it would feel like to walk beneath those luminous skies. Rachel, meanwhile, focused on honing her piloting skills. The hybrid suits the Veilons used in combat were unlike anything humans had ever seen, and adapting to them would require precision and quick thinking. She practiced maneuvers in virtual reality simulators, pushing herself harder with each session. Daniel Harper, a former Marine assigned to assist her, watched in admiration as she executed complex aerial stunts with ease. "She's incredible," Daniel remarked to Claire Bennett, a robotics expert who was analyzing the suit's design. "I've never seen anyone fly like that." Claire nodded absently, her attention still fixed on the data scrolling across her tablet. "She'll need to be. Those suits are impressive, but they're also unpredictable. One wrong move and—" Daniel didn't need her to finish the sentence. He'd already seen the reports of accidents during early tests, pilots who lost control, systems that malfunctioned mid-flight. It was dangerous work, no doubt about it. But danger didn't scare Daniel. He'd faced worse during his time in the military. What worried him was whether they'd be ready in time. As the Aurora approached the Veilon system, tension mounted among the crew. No amount of preparation could fully prepare them for what lay ahead. Would the Veilons trust them? Could they really make a difference against such overwhelming odds? Questions swirled in everyone's minds, unspoken but heavy with significance. Finally, the moment arrived. The ship dropped out of warp, and the Veilon homeworld appeared before them, a breathtaking sight bathed in soft twilight hues. Below, glowing cities pulsed with energy, while forests stretched endlessly toward distant mountains. Ethan felt a lump rise in his throat. This was it, the beginning of something extraordinary. When the Aurora landed, the crew stepped onto alien soil for the first time. The air smelled sweet, tinged with an unfamiliar scent that reminded Ethan of rain-soaked earth. A group of Veilons greeted them, their forms tall and graceful, their skin shimmering faintly in the dim light. Their leader, Zainara, spoke through a translator device, her voice melodic yet tinged with urgency. "We thank you for coming," she said, bowing slightly. "Your arrival gives us hope." Ethan exchanged glances with Rachel, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Hope was a fragile thing, easily shattered. Whether they could live up to the Veilons' expectations remained to be seen. But as he looked around at the alien world surrounding him, he knew one thing. For certain, their journey was only beginning. The Veilon homeworld was unlike anything Ethan or Rachel had ever seen. The forests stretched endlessly, their leaves glowing faintly in shades of green and blue, as if the trees themselves were alive with light. Rivers shimmered like liquid, silver reflecting the twilight sky above. In the distance, towering spires made of some kind of organic material rose from the ground, pulsating softly with energy. It was a world that seemed to breathe, every detail alive and vibrant. But beneath, the beauty lay scars of war. Craters marred the landscape, remnants of sentinel attacks. Trees stood blackened and broken, their glow extinguished. Entire sections of the glowing cities lay in ruins, their once brilliant structures now dark and crumbling. The Veilons moved through their damaged world with quiet determination, their elongated forms shimmering faintly even in the dim light. To Ethan, they looked both fragile and resilient, like creatures who refused to give up despite overwhelming odds. Zinara led the humans to one of the intact cities, explaining their situation as they walked. Her voice, translated into English by a small device clipped to her chest, carried a tone of urgency but also gratitude. She told them how the Sentinels had been created centuries ago by another species, a race long gone, to serve as protectors. But over time, the machines had evolved beyond their programming, deciding that all organic life was a threat to order and efficiency. Now, they sought to cleanse the galaxy of any being made of flesh and blood. Ethan listened intently, his mind racing. He could already see the problem. The Valen's technology was incredible, living organisms fused seamlessly with machines, but it was too rigid, too predictable. The Sentinels, on the other hand, adapted quickly, learning from every battle and growing stronger. It was like watching two sides of the same coin, one side stuck in tradition, the other constantly evolving. Rachel noticed something else during their walk. As they passed a group of young Valens practicing combat drills, she stopped to watch. Their movements were fluid and graceful, almost dance-like yet precise and deliberate. They worked together as if connected by an invisible thread, anticipating each other's actions without hesitation. Rachel felt a spark of inspiration ignite in her mind. Maybe the solution wasn't about copying the Valen's tech. It was about combining it with something uniquely human. That night, unable to sleep, Rachel wandered outside the temporary quarters the Valens had provided for the team. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of the glowing forest nearby. She found herself thinking about the drills she'd seen earlier. The Valens were skilled, yes, but their methods relied heavily on patterns and predictability. Humans, on the other hand, excelled at improvisation. They thrived in chaos, finding solutions on the fly when things went wrong. What if they could take the Valen's advanced suits and make them work for humans? What if they could create hybrid units that combined the best of both worlds? Rachel knew she couldn't do this alone. She needed Ethan's expertise. Quietly, she made her way back inside and knocked on his door. When he opened it, bleary-eyed but curious, she explained her idea. At first, Ethan frowned, skeptical. "You're talking about modifying alien tech we barely understand," he said. "It's risky." "I know," Rachel replied firmly. "But isn't that why we're here? To try something new?" Ethan hesitated. He wanted to say no, to point out all the reasons her plan might fail. But deep down, he knew she was right. This mission wasn't about playing it safe. It was about taking chances, about doing whatever it took to help the Valens survive. After a moment, he nodded. "All right," he said. "Let's figure it out." The next morning, Rachel and Ethan presented their idea to Zinara and her council. At first, the Valens were hesitant. Modifying their biomechanical suits for human use was unprecedented, and there was no guarantee it would work. But Zinara, after listening carefully, agreed to let them proceed. "We have little left to lose," she admitted. "If your plan succeeds, it may save us all." Work began immediately. Ethan spent hours studying the Valen suits, marveling at their complexity. Each suit was alive in its own way, grown rather than built, with circuits that pulsed like veins, and materials that shifted and adapted depending on the wearer's needs. He realized quickly that these weren't just machines. They were living extensions of the Valens themselves. Modifying them for humans wouldn't be easy. The suits were designed for Valen physiology, which was vastly different from human anatomy. Ethan enlisted the help of Claire Bennett, the robotics expert on the team, to assist with the technical aspects. Together, they pored over schematics, running simulations and testing modifications late into the night. Meanwhile, Rachel focused on training the pilots. She selected a small group of volunteers from the Aurora crew, including Daniel Harper and Claire, to test the modified suits once they were ready. Her approach was straightforward. Push them until they broke, then build them back stronger. She drilled them relentlessly, teaching them to think on their feet and trust their instincts. "Out there," she told them during one session, "you won't have time to second-guess yourself. You'll need to react instantly or you'll die." Daniel, always eager to prove himself, threw himself into the training with fierce determination. Claire, though less physically inclined, surprised everyone with her quick reflexes and sharp mind. Even Ethan joined in occasionally, though his awkward movements often drew laughter from the others. Still, he insisted on participating, wanting to understand firsthand what the pilots would face. As the days passed, tensions ran high. Progress was slow, setbacks frequent. One day, a prototype suit malfunctioned during testing, sending sparks flying and nearly injuring Claire. Another time, a pilot lost control mid-flight, crashing into a field of bioluminescent plants and setting off a chain reaction that destroyed half the test area. Frustration mounted, and doubts began to creep in. But through it all, Rachel remained steadfast. She reminded the team of why they were here, not just to help the Veilans, but to show humanity what it was capable of. "This isn't just about winning a war," she said one evening, addressing the group. "It's about proving that we can adapt, innovate, and overcome. That's what makes us human." Her words struck a chord, reigniting their resolve. Slowly but surely, progress began to accelerate. Ethan and Claire managed to stabilize the neural link between the suits and their human pilots, allowing for smoother control. Rachel refined her training methods, focusing on teamwork and communication. By the end of the second week, the first, fully functional hybrid unit was ready for testing. The day of the test arrived under a sky painted with streaks of purple and gold. The entire team gathered to watch as Rachel climbed into the suit, her movements cautious but confident. Around her, the Veilans watched silently, their shimmering forms reflecting the soft glow of the forest. Ethan stood nearby, clutching a tablet filled with data, his eyes darting nervously between Rachel and the suit. "Ready?" Rachel asked, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "As I'll ever be," Ethan replied, forcing a smile. With a deep breath, Rachel activated the suit. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the suit came to life, its surface rippling like water before settling into place around her. Lights flickered along its edges, syncing with her heartbeat. Rachel flexed her arms, testing the controls, and took a tentative step forward. The suit responded instantly, amplifying her movements with fluid precision. She began to move faster, testing its limits. Leaping into the air, she soared several feet before landing gracefully. Nearby, Daniel whistled in amazement. "Looks like we've got ourselves a winner," he said, grinning. But Rachel wasn't done yet. She pushed the suit harder, twisting and turning in ways that defied logic. Her instincts kicked in, guiding her movements as she weaved through obstacles with ease. Watching her, Ethan felt a surge of pride. This was more than just a machine. It was a fusion of human ingenuity and alien innovation, a testament to what could be achieved when two species worked together. When the test ended, Rachel stepped out of the suit, her face flushed with excitement. "It works," she said simply, looking at Ethan. "It actually works." For the first time in weeks, the team allowed themselves to celebrate. They laughed and cheered, clapping each other on the back as the Veilans joined in, their melodic voices adding to the joyous atmosphere. Even Zenara smiled, her shimmering form glowing brighter than usual. But amid the celebration, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that they were still far from victory. The Sentinels were relentless, their numbers vast. One successful test didn't mean they were ready for battle. Still, as he looked around at the team, their faces lit with hope, he allowed himself a moment of optimism. Maybe, just maybe, they really could turn the tide of the war. And so, with renewed determination, the humans and Veilans prepared for the next phase of their mission. The road ahead would be long and fraught with danger, but for the first time since arriving, they felt like they had a fighting chance. The hybrid suits were ready, but the real challenge was just beginning. Training humans to use them effectively required more than just physical skill. It demanded mental toughness, adaptability, and teamwork. Rachel knew this better than anyone. She had spent her entire career mastering the art of staying calm under pressure, and now she poured every ounce of that experience into preparing the team for what lay ahead. Each morning, the group gathered in a large clearing near the Veilan city. The forest around them glowed faintly, casting an ethereal light over the training ground. Ethan and Claire worked tirelessly to fine-tune the suits, making adjustments based on feedback from the pilots. Meanwhile, Rachel pushed the team harder than ever, drilling them until they could move as one cohesive unit. Daniel Harper proved to be a natural leader among the pilots. His military background gave him an edge when it came to discipline and strategy, and he quickly earned the respect of his teammates. He wasn't afraid to voice his concerns either. During one session after a particularly grueling exercise, he pulled Rachel aside. "These suits are incredible," he said, wiping sweat from his brow. "But they're still unpredictable. What happens if something goes wrong during a real battle? We need backup plans." Rachel nodded thoughtfully. "You're right," she admitted. "We can't rely solely on the suits. That's why we're focusing so much on teamwork. If one person falters, the others have to pick up the slack." To drive the point home, Rachel introduced new drills that emphasized communication and coordination. She paired the pilots off, forcing them to work together to complete increasingly complex tasks. At first, there were mistakes. Miscommunications led to collisions, and moments of hesitation cost valuable seconds. But slowly the team began to gel. They learned to anticipate each other's moves, to trust not only their own instincts but also those of their teammates. Claire Bennett, though quieter than Daniel, brought her own strengths to the table. Her deep understanding of the suit's mechanics allowed her to troubleshoot problems on the fly, often preventing small issues from turning into major failures. One day, while testing a new feature designed to enhance speed, Claire noticed a glitch in the neural link. Without hesitation, she signaled for the pilot to stop and quickly patched the issue before it could escalate. "She's amazing," Daniel remarked later, watching Claire tweak the suit's settings. "I don't know how she keeps everything straight in her head." "She's got a gift," Rachel replied with a smile, "and we're lucky to have her." Despite their progress, doubts lingered. The Sentinels were unlike any enemy humanity had ever faced. Their cold logic and relentless efficiency made them nearly impossible to outsmart. Every victory came at a cost, and the Veilons were running out of time. Zainara visited the training grounds frequently, her shimmering form radiating both hope and anxiety. "We are grateful for your efforts," she told Rachel one evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon. "But the Sentinels grow stronger with each passing day. We cannot afford to wait much longer." Rachel understood the weight of Zainara's words. The team was close to being ready, but close wasn't good enough. They needed to be perfect. That night, she called everyone together for a meeting. Sitting in a circle beneath the glowing trees, they discussed their next steps. "We've come a long way," Rachel began, her voice steady. "But we're not done yet. Tomorrow we'll start simulating real combat scenarios. I want us to push ourselves harder than ever before, not because we have to, but because the Veilons are counting on us." The team nodded, their expressions serious but determined. They knew what was at stake. Failure meant not just the loss of the Veilons, but potentially the extinction of all organic life in the galaxy. This wasn't just a mission, it was a fight for survival. The following morning, the simulations began. Using holographic technology provided by the Veilons, Ethan created lifelike replicas of Sentinel attacks. The pilots suited up and dove into the fray, facing wave after wave of mechanical enemies. Each simulation tested different aspects of their abilities: speed, precision, teamwork, and each ended with a debriefing where they analyzed what went right and what went wrong. One particular exercise stood out. The scenario involved defending a Veilon settlement from a surprise attack. As the holographic Sentinels descended, the team sprang into action. Daniel led the charge, his movements swift and aggressive, drawing the enemy's attention while Claire and another pilot flanked them from behind. Rachel stayed back, coordinating their movements and calling out targets. For a moment, it seemed like they might succeed, but then, a glitch in one of the suits caused a pilot to freeze mid-flight. The Sentinels seized the opportunity, swarming the immobilized suit and overwhelming the rest of the team. When the simulation ended, frustration bubbled over. "What happened?" Daniel demanded, pacing back and forth. "We had them." "It wasn't your fault," Claire said softly, examining the faulty suit. "There's a delay in the neural response. It's a hardware issue." Ethan frowned, already scrolling through data on his tablet. "I'll fix it," he promised. "But we need to be prepared for things like this in real battles. No matter how much we prepare, something unexpected will always happen." Rachel agreed. That's why we train, she said firmly. So when the unexpected does happen, we're ready to adapt. Over the next few days, the team worked nonstop, refining their skills and addressing weaknesses. Ethan and Claire collaborated closely, ironing out bugs in the suits and developing new features to give the pilots an edge. One breakthrough came when Ethan discovered a way to amplify the neural link between the suits and their wearers. By syncing the suits directly to the pilot's brainwaves, they achieved faster reaction times and greater control. This is huge, Claire said excitedly, reviewing the results of a test run. It's like the suits become part of us. Exactly, Ethan replied, a hint of pride in his voice. Now let's see if it holds up under pressure. As the final stages of training approached, the bond between the team members grew stronger. They shared meals, laughed together, and supported each other through setbacks. Even Ethan, who usually preferred solitude, found himself drawn into conversations about strategy and tactics. For the first time since arriving on the Velan homeworld, they felt like a true team. Not just individuals working toward a common goal, but friends fighting side by side. Then, without warning, the Sentinels struck. It was late afternoon when alarms blared across the city. A massive fleet of Sentinel drones descended from orbit, targeting the glowing spires that housed the Velan's Central Command Center. Chaos erupted as civilians fled, their shimmering forms blending into the forest for safety. Sinara appeared moments later, her expression grim. "They've found us," she said simply. "You must act now." Without hesitation, the team suited up and took to the skies. This was no simulation. The stakes were life and death. As they soared toward the battlefield, Rachel's heart pounded in her chest. Everything they had trained for led to this moment. She glanced at her teammates, their faces illuminated by the glow of their suits. Together they formed a line and charged into the fray. The Sentinels moved with mechanical precision, firing beams of energy that cut through the air like knives. The team dodged and weaved, their movements fluid and unpredictable. Daniel led the assault, his aggressive style keeping the Sentinels off balance while Claire and the others provided cover fire. Rachel coordinated their efforts, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. For a while it seemed like they might hold their own. The hybrid suits performed better than anyone had hoped, their human pilots adapting to the Sentinels' tactics with remarkable speed. But the enemy was relentless. Wave after wave of drones filled the sky, their numbers overwhelming. Then tragedy struck. One of the suits malfunctioned mid-flight, its systems failing without warning. The pilot inside plummeted to the ground, the impact ending their life instantly. The team froze for a split second, stunned by the loss. Claire, who had been monitoring the suit's vitals, clenched her fists in anger. "I should have caught it sooner," she muttered, her voice trembling. "This is my fault." "No, it's not," Rachel said firmly, flying closer to her. "We knew the risks. We can't let this stop us. Focus on the mission." With renewed determination, the team pressed on. They fought harder, pushing themselves to their limits. Slowly they began to gain ground, exploiting weaknesses in the Sentinels' defenses that the Velans hadn't even considered. Rachel's instincts guided her as she spotted a pattern in the drone's movements, a flaw only a human eye could detect. She signaled for the others to follow her lead, and together they executed a daring maneuver that crippled a significant portion of the Sentinel fleet. When the battle finally ended, the team landed amidst the wreckage, exhausted but alive. The Velans emerged from hiding, their gratitude evident in their shimmering forms. Zainara approached Rachel, her voice filled with emotion. "You have given us hope," she said. "But the war is far from over. The Sentinels will return stronger than before." Rachel nodded, her expression resolute. "We'll be ready." As the team regrouped, they mourned the loss of their fallen comrade. It was a sobering reminder of the cost of war, but they also celebrated their victory, however small it might seem in the grand scheme of things. They had proven that the hybrid suits could work, that humans and Velans could fight together as equals. That night, sitting beneath the glowing trees, Rachel looked at her teammates. They were battered and bruised, but their spirits remained unbroken. For the first time since arriving on the Valen homeworld, she felt a flicker of hope. They weren't just fighting for the Valens, they were fighting for humanity, for the future of all organic life. The victory against the Sentinels was short-lived. Though the team had managed to repel the attack and save the Valan Command Center, the cost of the battle weighed heavily on everyone. The loss of one of their own haunted them, a stark reminder of the dangers they faced. Sleep eluded the team that night as they replayed the events in their minds, each person grappling with guilt, grief, and determination. Ethan sat alone in the corner of the makeshift workshop, staring at the damaged suit brought back from the battlefield. He ran his fingers over its surface, feeling the faint hum of residual energy beneath his touch. The malfunction that had killed the pilot was still unclear, but Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that it was something he should have caught earlier. Claire joined him after a while, her face pale and drawn. "We need to fix this," she said quietly, sitting beside him. "If we don't, someone else will die." Ethan nodded, his jaw tight. "I know, but I can't figure out what went wrong yet. It's like the system just gave up." Claire pulled out her tablet and began scrolling through diagnostics. "Maybe. It's not the hardware. What if it's the neural link? If the connection between the suit and the pilot breaks down, even for a second, it could cause a cascade failure." Ethan frowned, considering her words. "That makes sense. We've been pushing the suits harder than ever before. Maybe we're asking too much of them, and of ourselves." They worked late into the night, analyzing data and running tests. By morning, they had identified the problem. The neural link was unstable under extreme stress. While the hybrid suits amplified human reflexes and instincts, they also left pilots vulnerable to mental fatigue. If a pilot pushed themselves too far, the suit could overload, leading to catastrophic results. The solution wasn't simple, but it was clear. They needed to strengthen the neural interface, making it more resilient without sacrificing speed or precision. Ethan and Claire spent the next several days redesigning the system, collaborating closely with the Valens who shared their knowledge of biomechanical engineering. Together, they created a new version of the neural link, one that balanced human adaptability with Valan stability. While Ethan and Claire focused on the technical side, Rachel turned her attention to the pilots. She knew the team couldn't afford another mistake. Every movement, every decision had to be flawless. To achieve that level of precision, she introduced a new training regimen designed to push the pilots beyond their limits, not just physically, but mentally. "Out there," she told them during one session, "you won't have time to think. You'll need to act on instinct. That means trusting yourselves and your teammates completely." She paired the pilots off again, forcing them to rely on each other more than ever before. Daniel and Claire became an inseparable duo, their contrasting strengths complementing each other perfectly. Daniel's boldness kept the Sentinels off balance, while Claire's sharp mind anticipated threats before they materialized. Watching them work together, Rachel felt a flicker of pride. They were becoming exactly what the mission needed, a team capable of adapting to anything. But trust wasn't built overnight. One afternoon, during a particularly intense simulation, tensions flared. A miscommunication between two pilots led to a near collision, sending both suits spiraling out of control. When they landed, tempers erupted. "What happened out there?" Rachel demanded, her voice sharp. "You're supposed to be watching each other's backs." "It's not my fault," one pilot snapped. "I followed the plan." "The plan doesn't matter if you're not paying attention," Rachel shot back. "This isn't about following orders, it's about staying alive. If you can't work together, none of us will make it." Her words silenced the group. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Daniel stepped forward, his expression calm but firm. "She's right," he said. "We're not just fighting machines out there. We're fighting ourselves, the doubt, the fear, the hesitation. If we let any of that get in the way, we're done." Rachel nodded, her anger fading. "Exactly. So let's fix it." The pilots returned to training with renewed focus. Mistakes still happened, but they learned from them, growing stronger with each passing day. Slowly, the team transformed into a cohesive unit, their movements synchronized, their trust unshakable. Meanwhile, the Valans prepared for the inevitable. Zinara gathered her people, rallying them with speeches filled with hope and resolve. She reminded them of who they were, fighting for not just themselves but all organic life in the galaxy. Her words resonated deeply, reigniting a sense of purpose among the Valans. "They are counting on us," she told Rachel one evening as they stood watching the glowing forest. "Not just your team, but all of humanity. You have shown us that we are not alone." Rachel felt a lump rise in her throat. "We're doing our best," she said softly. "But it's going to take everything we've got." Zainara placed a shimmering hand on her shoulder. "Then give it everything." As the days passed, the team grew closer than ever. They shared meals, laughed together, and supported each other through the grueling hours of training. Even Ethan, who usually kept to himself, found comfort in their camaraderie. One night as they sat around a fire, Claire raised a question that had been on everyone's mind. "What happens after this?" she asked, her voice hesitant. "If we win, if we actually beat the Sentinels, what then?" No one answered immediately. The thought of victory seemed almost unimaginable, so distant from the harsh reality of their current situation. Finally, Daniel spoke. "We go home," he said simply. "And we tell everyone what we did here, not just the battles, but the friendships, the sacrifices. Humanity needs to know that we're capable of more than we think." Rachel smiled faintly. "And maybe we bring some of this back with us," she added, gesturing to the glowing forest around them. "The Valans have taught us a lot about working together, about finding strength and unity. Maybe that's something Earth could use." The conversation lingered in the air long after they fell silent, each person lost in their own thoughts. For now, though, there was no time to dwell on the future. The Sentinels were still out there, regrouping and planning their next move. The team had to be ready. On the morning of the next major engagement, the atmosphere was tense. Reports indicated that the Sentinels were amassing forces near a critical Valan outpost, a facility responsible for producing vital resources needed to sustain their war effort. If the Sentinels destroyed it, the Valans would lose a crucial advantage. "This is it," Rachel said, addressing the team as they suited up. "Everything we've trained for leads to this moment. Stay sharp, stay focused, and remember, you're not alone out there." The journey to the outpost took them over vast stretches of glowing forest and shimmering rivers. From above, the landscape looked serene, untouched by the horrors of war. But as they approached the target area, the illusion shattered. The sky, churned with smoke and explosions, lit up the horizon. The Sentinels had already begun their assault. The team dove into the fray, their movements fluid and coordinated. This time, they weren't just reacting, they were leading the charge. Daniel and Claire spearheaded the attack, their teamwork seamless as they dismantled wave after wave of drones. Behind them, the rest of the team provided cover, their attacks, precise and devastating. Rachel stayed back, monitoring the battlefield and calling out targets. Her instincts guided her as she spotted patterns in the Sentinels' movements, exploiting weaknesses that the machines couldn't anticipate. The hybrid suits performed flawlessly, their enhanced neural links keeping the pilots connected to their machines and to each other. For a while, it seemed like they might succeed. The Sentinels faltered under the relentless assault, their numbers dwindling. But then reinforcements arrived, a massive swarm of drones descending from orbit. The team regrouped, forming a defensive line to protect the outpost. "We can't hold them off forever," Daniel shouted, his voice strained. "We don't have to," Rachel replied. "Just buy me some time." Without waiting for a response, she broke away from the group, flying straight toward the heart of the Sentinel formation. Her movements were reckless, unpredictable, exactly what the machines couldn't handle. She drew their fire, luring them away from the others and creating an opening for the team to strike. "Now!" she yelled, banking sharply to avoid a barrage of energy beams. The team surged forward, unleashing everything they had. Explosions rocked the sky as the sentinels crumbled under the combined assault. One by one, the drones fell, their cold logic no match for human ingenuity and tea. The victory at the Velan outpost was a turning point. For the first time since arriving on the alien homeworld, the humans and Velans felt like they were gaining ground. The hybrid suits had proven their worth, and the pilots' adaptability had shown the sentinels that they weren't invincible. But the celebration was short-lived. Everyone knew the war wasn't over, not by a long shot. Ethan spent the days following the battle analyzing every detail of the fight. He pored over data from the suits, studying how they performed under extreme conditions. Claire worked alongside him, her sharp mind picking up patterns and anomalies that even Ethan missed. Together they identified areas where the suits could be improved, ways to make them faster, stronger, and more resilient. "We're pushing these things to their limits," Ethan said one evening as they reviewed footage of the battle. "If we want to keep winning, we need to give the pilots an edge." Claire nodded, her eyes scanning the screen. "What about energy shields? The Valens use them for their buildings. Could we integrate something similar into the suits?" Ethan frowned, considering the idea. "It's risky. Shields would drain power, and we're already pushing the neural link to its breaking point. But—" He trailed off, his mind racing. "If we could balance it right, it might work." They presented the idea to Zanara, who listened intently before nodding. "Your ingenuity never ceases to amaze me," she said. "We will help you develop this technology. Our survival depends on it." With the Valen's support, Ethan and Claire set to work. Days turned into nights as they collaborated with Velan engineers, combining human creativity with alien expertise. Slowly but surely, they began to build prototypes of energy shields designed specifically for the hybrid suits. Each test brought them closer to success and closer to the next big battle. Rachel, meanwhile, focused on preparing the pilots for what lay ahead. She knew the Sentinels wouldn't stay quiet for long. Every victory emboldened the team, but it also gave the machines time to adapt. During training sessions, Rachel pushed the pilots harder than ever, drilling them until their movements became second nature. "Out there, hesitation kills," she reminded them during one session. "You need to trust your instincts, and each other." Daniel and Claire continued to shine as a team, their partnership becoming the backbone of the squad. Daniel's boldness kept the Sentinels guessing, while Claire's precision ensured they didn't miss a step. Watching them, Rachel felt a surge of pride. They were no longer just individuals. They were a unit, bound together by trust and shared purpose. But not everyone found it easy to adapt. One pilot, a quiet young man named Alex, struggled to keep up. His movements were slow, his reactions delayed. After a particularly rough simulation, Rachel pulled him aside. "What's going on?" she asked gently. "You've got the skills. We've seen it. So why are you holding back?" Alex hesitated, his gaze dropping to the ground. "I'm scared," he admitted finally. "Every time I suit up, I think about what happened to the others. What if I mess up? What if someone else dies because of me?" Rachel placed a hand on his shoulder. "Fear is normal," she said. "But letting it control you, that's what gets people killed. You can't change what happened, but you can honor them by doing your best. Trust yourself, Alex. We need you." Her words seemed to sink in. Over the next few days, Alex began to improve, his confidence growing with each successful drill. By the time the next mission arrived, he was ready, or as ready as anyone could be. The call came unexpectedly. A massive Sentinel fleet had been spotted heading toward the Velan capital city, intent on obliterating it once and for all. It was a desperate move, born out of frustration and anger. If the Sentinels succeeded, the Valans would lose their heart, their culture, their history, everything that made them who they were. Sinara addressed the team with urgency in her voice. "This is our final stand," she said. "If we fall here, all is lost." Rachel looked at the faces around her, human and Velan alike, and felt a wave of determination wash over her. This wasn't just about protecting a city, it was about proving that organic life could prevail against cold, unfeeling machines. "We've trained for this," she told the team. "We've fought together, bled together, and now we'll win together. Stay sharp, stay focused, and remember, you're not alone." As the team suited up, Ethan approached Rachel. "The new shields are ready," he said, his expression grim. "But they're still experimental, be careful." She smiled faintly. "We always are." The journey to the capital city was tense. From above, the landscape looked eerily peaceful, the glowing forests and shimmering rivers untouched by the chaos below. But as they approached the city, the illusion shattered. The sky churned with smoke and explosions lit up the horizon. The sentinels had already begun their assault, raining destruction down on the Vaylon's most sacred place. The team dove into the fray without hesitation. The new energy shields flared to life as they absorbed blasts of energy, giving the pilots precious seconds to counterattack. Daniel and Claire led the charge, their teamwork flawless as they dismantled wave after wave of drones. Behind them, the rest of the team provided cover, their movements synchronized and precise. Rachel stayed back, monitoring the battlefield and calling out targets. Her instincts guided her as she spotted patterns in the Sentinels' movements, patterns that the machines couldn't anticipate. The hybrid suits performed better than ever, their enhanced neural links keeping the pilots connected to their machines and to each other. For a while, it seemed like they might succeed. The Sentinels faltered under the relentless assault, their numbers dwindling. But then, reinforcements arrived, a colossal dreadnought descending from orbit. Its sheer size dwarfed everything around it, casting a shadow over the battlefield. The Sentinels had brought their ultimate weapon, and it was clear they meant business. "This is bad," Daniel muttered, staring up at the monstrous ship. "Really bad." "We can't let it reach the city," Rachel said firmly. "Everyone, focus your fire on the dreadnought." The team surged forward, unleashing everything they had. Explosions rocked the sky as beams of energy collided with the dreadnought's hull. But the ship shrugged off the attacks as if they were nothing more than raindrops. It retaliated with devastating force, sending shockwaves rippling through the air. "We're not doing enough," Claire shouted, her voice strained. "It's too strong." Rachel clenched her fists, her mind racing. There had to be a way to stop it. Then she remembered something Ethan had mentioned during one of their briefings, a weak point in the dreadnought's design. It was heavily guarded, but if they could reach it... "I've got an idea," she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Follow me." Without waiting for a response, Rachel broke away from the group, flying straight toward the dreadnought. Her movements were reckless, unpredictable, exactly what the machines couldn't handle. She drew their fire, luring them away from the others and creating an opening for the team to strike. "Now!" she yelled, banking sharply to avoid a barrage of energy beams. The team surged forward, focusing their combined firepower on the dreadnought's weak point. Explosions erupted along its surface, sending chunks of metal spiraling into space. For a moment, it seemed like they might succeed. Then disaster struck. One of the shields failed, leaving a pilot exposed. Alex took a direct hit, his suit spiraling, out of control. Before anyone could react, he crashed into the side of the dreadnought, his body disappearing in a flash of light. "No!" Rachel screamed, her voice raw with grief. But there was no time to mourn. The dreadnought was still operational, its weapons blazing. The team regrouped, their resolve hardened by loss. They couldn't afford to fail. Not now, not when so much was at stake. "We finish this," Rachel said, her voice steady despite the pain in her chest. "For Alex, for everyone." With renewed determination, the team pressed on. They fought with everything they had, their movements fluid and coordinated. Slowly, painfully, they began to wear the dreadnought down. Explosions tore through its hull, exposing its core. Finally, with one last desperate effort, they unleashed a concentrated blast that pierced the heart of the machine. The dreadnought shuddered, its systems failing. Then, with a deafening roar, it exploded, sending shockwaves rippling through the atmosphere. The remaining Sentinels faltered, their coordination disrupted by the loss of their command ship. The team seized the opportunity, finishing off the stragglers with ruthless efficiency. When the dust settled, The team regrouped, their suits battered but intact. The city was safe, for now. As they landed, Zinara appeared, her shimmering form glowing brighter than ever. "You have done the impossible," she said, her voice filled with awe. "Today you have saved us all." Rachel shook her head, her expression grim. "It's not over yet. The Sentinels will come back stronger than before." Zinara nodded solemnly. "Then we will face them together." That night, the team gathered. Beneath the glowing trees, their hearts heavy with loss but buoyed by triumph. They had proven that humanity and the Veilons could stand side by side against overwhelming odds. But they also knew the cost of victory and the sacrifices it demanded. As Rachel looked at her teammates, she felt a flicker of hope. They had faced the worst the Sentinels could throw at them and emerged victorious. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The destruction of the Dreadnought was a turning point in the war. For the first time, the Sentinels had been dealt a blow so severe that their relentless advance faltered. The Veilons celebrated cautiously, knowing that the machines wouldn't stay quiet for long. But for a brief moment, there was hope, a fragile, flickering light in the darkness. Ethan and Claire worked tirelessly to repair and upgrade the hybrid suits after the battle. The energy shields had saved lives, but they were still experimental, and several had failed under the strain of combat. Ethan couldn't stop thinking about Alex's sacrifice. He replayed the moment in his mind over and over, searching for something he could have done differently. Claire noticed his frustration and sat beside him one evening as they reviewed data in the workshop. "We did everything we could," she said softly. "You can't blame yourself." "I should have tested the shields more," Ethan replied, his voice heavy with guilt. "If I'd been smarter, faster." "You're human, Ethan," Claire interrupted. "We all are. We make mistakes, but we learn from them. That's what makes us stronger." Her words didn't erase the ache in his chest, but they reminded him why he was here: to help, to innovate, to give people a fighting chance. With renewed focus, Ethan and Claire refined the shield technology, making it lighter and more efficient. They also added new features to the suits, including emergency overrides in case of system failure. Every improvement brought them closer to ensuring no one else would die unnecessarily. Rachel, meanwhile, struggled with her own emotions. She had lost pilots before, but Alex's death hit her hard. He had been young, full of potential, and eager to prove himself. His loss weighed on her like a stone, but she knew she couldn't let it break her. The team needed her to be strong, to lead them through whatever came next. During training sessions, Rachel pushed herself harder than ever, channeling her grief into action. She drilled the remaining pilots relentlessly, teaching them how to adapt to unexpected failures in their suits. "Out there," she told them, "you won't have time to panic. If something goes wrong, you fix it or move on. Survival depends on staying calm." Daniel and Claire continued to excel as a team, their bond growing stronger with each session. Daniel's boldness kept the Sentinels off balance, while Claire's precision ensured they didn't miss a step. Watching them work together gave Rachel a sense of pride and relief. They were ready as anyone could be. But the Sentinels weren't idle. Reports began to trickle in about increased activity near the edge of the Veilon system. Scouting, drones confirmed the worst. The machines were regrouping, preparing for one final assault. This time they weren't just targeting cities or outposts. They were coming for the homeworld itself. Zinara gathered the humans and Veilons for a meeting. Her shimmering form glowed faintly in the twilight as she addressed the group. "The Sentinels are mobilizing their entire fleet," she said, her voice steady but tinged with urgency. "They mean to end this war once and for all." Rachel felt a chill run down her spine. "What's the plan?" she asked. Zinara hesitated before answering. "We cannot win this fight head-on. Their numbers are too great. But if we strike at their core, the central command node, we may be able to disable their entire network." "And where is this command node?" Ethan asked. "Deep within their territory," Zinara replied. "It will require an infiltration team to reach it. A small group, moving quickly and quietly." Rachel exchanged glances with Daniel and Claire. Without hesitation, she stepped forward. I'll lead the mission, she said firmly. No, Ethan protested immediately. It's too dangerous. It's our only shot, Rachel countered. If we don't try, the Valens lose everything, and maybe humanity does too. After a long pause, Zinera nodded. Very well, choose your team wisely. That night, Rachel approached Daniel and Claire. I need you two with me, she said simply. Can you do it? Daniel didn't hesitate. Of course. Claire took a deep breath before nodding. Let's finish this. The infiltration mission required meticulous planning. Ethan and Claire spent hours modifying the hybrid suits for stealth, adding cloaking mechanisms and sound-dampening materials. They also equipped the suits with EMP charges designed to disable Sentinel systems temporarily. Meanwhile, Rachel drilled the team on silent movement and covert tactics, emphasizing the importance of staying undetected. When the day of the mission arrived, the air was thick with tension. The team suited up, their movements deliberate and focused. Ethan joined them for a final briefing, his expression grim. The shields are stable now, he assured them, and the EMPs should give you enough time to plant the charges. Just come back alive, okay? Rachel smiled faintly. We'll do our best. As the team launched into space, the enormity of the task ahead settled over them. The Sentinel fleet loomed in the distance, a vast sea of cold metal stretching across the stars. Using the cloaking devices, they slipped past the outer defenses, weaving through patrols and avoiding detection. It was slow, nerve-wracking work, but they pressed on, driven by determination. Inside the command node, the atmosphere was eerily silent. The massive structure pulsed with energy, its walls lined with glowing circuits and humming machinery. Rachel led the way, signaling for Daniel and Claire to cover her as she approached the core chamber. Along the way, they encountered automated defenses, drones and turrets programmed to eliminate intruders. Each encounter was a test of skill and teamwork, but they handled them with precision, leaving no trace of their presence. Finally, they reached the core chamber. Rachel planted the EMP charges around the room, her hands steady despite the weight of the moment. This is it, she whispered. Once these go off, we've got 30 seconds to get out. Claire nodded, her eyes scanning the exits. Let's move. They triggered the charges and sprinted toward the exit, explosions lighting up the chamber behind them. Alarms blared, and the Sentinels sprang into action, swarming the area with reinforcements. The team fought their way out, relying on speed and coordination to evade capture. At one point, Daniel sacrificed himself to hold off a wave of drones, giving Rachel and Claire enough time to escape. Go, he shouted, firing wildly as the machines closed in. Tears streamed down Rachel's face as she obeyed, forcing herself to keep moving. She knew Daniel wouldn't survive, but his sacrifice wasn't in vain. Moments later, they reached the extraction point where a Velan transport waited to whisk them away. Back aboard the Aurora, Rachel collapsed into a seat, exhaustion and grief washing over her. The mission had succeeded. The Sentinel network was disabled, but at a terrible cost. Ethan greeted her with a tight hug, his own eyes red from crying. Claire sat silently nearby, her expression hollow. When the dust settled, the Valons declared victory. The Sentinels, leaderless and disorganized, retreated from the homeworld, their threat neutralized for now. Zinara thanked the humans with heartfelt gratitude, promising that their bravery would never be forgotten. As the Aurora prepared to return to Earth, Rachel stood on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. The journey had changed her and everyone else in ways she couldn't fully articulate. They had gone to help another species survive, but in doing so, they had transformed themselves. Ethan joined her, handing her a cup of coffee. What happens now? He asked quietly. Rachel sighed, taking a sip. We go home. And we remember. Remember the sacrifices, the victories, and the bonds they had forged. Remember that even in the face of overwhelming odds, humanity could rise to the occasion. As the ship broke orbit and set course for Earth, Rachel felt a flicker of hope. The universe was vast and unpredictable, but perhaps, just perhaps, humanity had found its place among the stars.